You're listening to the Nature People podcast. Welcome to the Nature People podcast, a platform on lesser-known protected areas, the people who are protecting them, and the different ways ecosystems and local economies are helping each other thrive through conservation. This is your host Shreyansh, along with your co-host Rituraj, and on this episode, we bring you the story of Garbhanga, a lesser-known forest in Assam sitting next to Deeperbill, a bird sanctuary. Joining us is our guest Nilutpal Mahanta, a PhD researcher at the Department of Zoology at Guwahati University. Welcome to our show, Nilutpal. We are happy to have you here. Please tell us something about yourself.
Hello. So I'm very happy to be a part of this podcast. So I am Nilutpal. I have been doing research on birds since like 2012. Like working in this field was never a childhood dream. So I was never thought like I'll be doing this as my research. But over time it evolved, and now it's a lifetime. I'm a lifetime student in this field, and the interest in me grew as I kept on learning new things, like about the natural world around us. So
Right.
it happened that way actually. It was never a childhood dream. I should not be saying it.
Any particular stories you have in mind that were like turning points in your life?
Yes, because when I was doing my graduation during that time, I think the ecology classes were the most that I understood.
Ah, okay.
So I think that's the turning point that I had. But as a we have a craze as a young man with warm bloods in our body. We have a dream of studying the things that generally people don't do, like the reptiles and all. So I was also interested in that, studying reptiles. But after I started my study and my research and my post graduation studies, that I saw that I don't get to see other species around, but I get to see birds everywhere. So it was birds all the way, all everywhere. Wherever I go, I hear birds, I see birds. So that's how my interest on birds built up, and gradually it changed. And now I'm a lifetime student of avian research.
So, Nilotpal, what are the species you relate to in terms of conservation? Tell us something about your involvement, some of the organizations you have worked with, and also uh, the impact of your interventions that you might want to share.
Okay, so as a researcher, I started working with Assam State Biodiversity Board after my post graduation. So during that time, actually, I got a chance to work on the understanding the traditional knowledges based on related to biodiversity, the traditional knowledges practiced by the tribes of Assam. So that was one of the great opportunity for me, which actually brought me more forward towards the natural world. And then also I joined Department of Zoology, Guwahati University, to study avian research. So then also I worked with Wildlife Trust of India as a biologist, and that work was on the elephant conflict, so human elephant conflict mitigation. So those were my past works that I have done. And also like the species that I have been working with, like swamp francolin. I have been working with swamp francolin conservation and research since 2014 also. And then also I have done elephant human elephant conflict research in the last year. So that is how my research goes on.
That sounds perfect, Nilutpal. And I mean, some of the things that really stood out was, your passion and interest in birds, your research in avian fauna, your research in human wildlife conflict, especially related to elephants, and your understanding of the traditional knowledge and the traditional systems that have made conservation till now possible. I would just want to move on with this conversation and really see how do you connect these dots when it comes to Garbhanga Reserve Forest, which is right outside Guwahati. I was just reading about it, and I saw there are a lot of problems with encroachment and whatnot going on around that area, and with the city expanding and everything else going on. How does the stuff you have already done in your life with uh, understanding traditional knowledge, biodiversity, avian fauna, and human wildlife conflict. How does all of that tie together when it comes to Garbhanga?
Okay, like Garbhanga Reserve Forest, it's in wonderland, I should say, because till now we do not know what are all the species of birds found in that place. There was a research paper that has around 100 species, but I think that's very underestimate number for the avian fauna found in that area. And Garbhanga Reserve Forest is being very near to my university. It's very near, just a few kilometers away from my university. So it's very near to the university, and it happens to be one of the research lab for us. Like an open research lab for the students of Guwahati University. So as a student, I have been like always visiting that place. Like mostly the Sundays, I used to visit that place, and I was amazed to see like the elephants in that area. Like they are so freely roaming around in that area. So it's a very important wildlife habitat, including birds, including different mammals, including like the most important one, the elephant. So I think as a student of wildlife, I found it very interesting to study this area because this Garbhanga Reserve Forest is one of the very less known area. There are several local tribes resides in and around this reserve forest, like tribes like Bodo, Rava, Khasi, and there are several Assamese people who lives inside or resides around this area. This area is a great source of economy in terms of NTFP, the non-timber forest products. Like the locals, they collect and sell like this NTFP, including like wild vegetables and broom grasses and a lot more. And also it's sometimes seen that some tribesmen, they get involved in like works with illegal logging and all. That's also a detrimental. But I think if we can motivate them in a positive way, the local community can help a lot in the conservation of this area.
Right. And, just adding something more to that, have you seen that happening recently? Like, have you seen that kind of like, work being done towards gearing people away from illegal logging towards the known forest produce cultivation that you were just talking about?
Okay, so I have seen like the local people, they are selling this anti-FP products in the nearby this markets. But also I have seen areas which have turned into like a barren area, which was like I have some photographs. I have photographed those areas like in 2012 when I saw the area that was a pristine wildlife habitat. But if again I saw the same area in 2018, which was lost, which was a barren land. So it's happening there actually because the area does not have any kind of legal protection. So it's the very least legal protection the area has is a reserve forest. So that is why it is having this harm from the people.
And Garbhanga, despite being so close to a major urban center like Guwahati, has been amazing all of us birders, especially with the kind of diversity that has slowly been unearthed in the last few years. Can you tell us something about some of the species, the birds that have been found there in the last decade or so, and what is the significance of so much avian biodiversity being found at a place so close to Guwahati?
Like Garbhanga Reserve Forest, it's not just it's just a reserve forest or a wildlife area. It's a gradient of all altitudes. Like it starts at the foothills, it continues to the high altitude, and Garbhanga starts in a place called Rani on the west, but it continues to Nongkhailam Wildlife Sanctuary on the east. So as a whole, it's a landscape, a part of the Khasi Hill landscape. So, and this is why the altitudinal, because of the altitudinal gradient, there are a lot of different species you get at different altitudes. The species mainly I can say like attractions like grey peacock pheasant, one of the very rare birds to see. We get to see them in Garbhanga Reserve Forest. Then recently there are sightings of oriental bay owl, which is again a very interesting sighting, and people are going there to see oriental bay owl. A lot of skimito bobblers are there. People used to go to Arunachal Pradesh and all to see this kind of species, but we still do not know like what are the species here, what are the rarities here. So skimita bobblers, a lot of ran bobblers, short wings, oriental dwarf kingfishers, and several species of kaku, and a lot of them. If I say about like mammals also, like there are the elephants, one of the important species in that area. and even we have seen small-clawed otter, yellow-throated martin in that area, and several species of deers and these canids.
Right. So, Nilutpal, one of the things I was really thinking is you mentioned how there are these specific bird species that are found in this area, which people would travel to places like Arunachal Pradesh to see. Now, they all of a sudden they know that okay, this bird species is found right around Garbhanga area, and they're rushing over to see those bird species around this place. Has this aided in generating some sort of employment or helping local community around the place?
Yes, yes, because there are a lot of bird guides who are getting trained and who are exploring the area, and they are taking the people to the place, and they charge something against that. Because I know few of them who are working in this area. So yes, the place is generating economy the through bird tourism.
And has that changed the narrative behind, or has that shifted people's perceptions about the place who would be involved in illegal logging earlier?
The things that have happened recently, it's a small, very small effort. It's a very small effort, and that yet to move like motivate people. But we need more programs or more awareness drives to aware people that this place can be a source of good income, good natural or good green income.
I know of a couple of issues that are also critical for Garbhanga, as they are to the very contiguous deeper bill. One is of course the pollution of the water at deeper bill, and how does it affect the wildlife of Garbhanga? And second question is quite related. We know the train passes through Garbhanga at some places, as it does through deeper bill. So these are both spelled out as long-term conservation threats, aren't they?
Yes, yes. Because the wetland you mentioned, Deepor Bill, it's a Ramsar site, I should say it. It's an important wetland, internationally important wetland. But if I go with the meaning of the wetland, the Deepa word in Sanskrit, it's called as elephant. In elephants, we call them in Sanskrit as Deepa. So the wetland, Dipor Bill means the lake for elephants or the wetland for the elephants. So this Dipor Bill is on the foothills of the northern foothills of the Garbhanga Reserve Forest. So these elephants come down to this wetland to take water, and this wetland serves to be one of the major water source for the elephants of residing inside the Garbhanga. So after this settling of this railway track, I think it was in the early 2000, the railway track came up through this Dipor Bill. So after coming this railway track, this lot of accidents happen, lot of deaths cases and injury cases happen. So I think this is causing a serious threat because you can say it's actually cutting down the connection between Dipor Bill and Garbhanga Reserve Forest.
Moving forward with everything you said about how the connection between Deeper Bill and Garbhanga is being destroyed gradually with linear infrastructure development, railway line development, and whatnot, and the things you said about what conservation practices are being carried out, and illegal logging and harvesting of non-timber forest produce. I would just want to sum up this thing. Where do you see the future of this place? What are some of the things you think are really necessary to make sure that conservation happens here? And how do you think communities can be involved so that communities benefit from conservation across this landscape?
Yes, the biggest conservation challenge that we are facing with the area is the legal protection status. It is still a reserve forest because the adjacent area in the Meghalayas, it is the Nongkhailam Wildlife Sanctuary. That's a wildlife sanctuary, and this area in Assam, it is still a reserve forest. And reserve forest has the least protection under Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972. I think the first thing that has to be done is to give a legal protection to this area, and after that, I think the local communities must have to be aware. So they should know the importance of the wildlife, and also the recent changes over on the climate of the area. I think that's again a biggest threat. I still do not know, we still do not know how climate change is affecting that area. But if I say about pollution, like Guwahati's pollution is, if I talk about the US AQI, air quality index, Guwahati is unhealthy for humans. And just think about the highly sensitive species, like changing climate, changing the temperature just by fractions can affect the highly sensitive species residing in this place.
And just to
Right.
add to that, there has been universal uh, there have been a lot of studies um, uh, highlighting the impact of climate change, change in rainfall patterns on the vegetation, and with the vegetation change, in the Karbi Anglong area, we have seen how grasslands in the hills have been overrun by invasive creepers and shrubs, and that has become a cause for food scarcity for all kinds of wildlife, including herbivores like elephants and deer, and they're coming more and more into areas of human habitation, and making them more vulnerable not just to poaching but also to this conflict incidents.
Yes, yes. So I think that kind of like studies must be done with the Garbhanga Reserve Forest also. We need to know a lot about this place.
Right. So just to conclude this and close our conversation tonight, Nilutpal, I would just want to hear your final conclusive thoughts, your hopes and aspirations for this place.
Okay, so the thing is that I'm very optimistic about the area because like people now like birders they move to different areas of Northeast India to see different birds. But now a lot of birders, like bird watchers, bird tour guides, they're exploring this place and they are actually bringing this place to a focus. So to a national focus, you can say people are rushing here to see the different species of birds. Once people get to know about the importance, like once people see this, people are coming. And I also see one optimism is that when there are different like tourists visiting the place, the logging activities also get reduced because the area gets a lot of attention. So I'm very optimistic though in terms of you can say tourism, also in terms of legal protection. I am very optimistic about the area.
Communities, conservation, legal status, and optimism are a message of hope for Garbhanga. For all of us listening tonight, this was Nilutpal Mahanta from Guwahati University. Make sure you check his work on ResearchGate and social media, and that you support his conservation efforts for Garbhanga. Stay tuned for more stories on conservation, lesser known protected landscapes, and communities, and we'll see you next time. Good night.